Big game there at Clemson this past Saturday, one that kind of had implications for the rest of the season for Clemson. There was no denying that if Clemson were able to find a way to win this game, it would have kept their playoff hopes alive. It also would have kept their hopes at another ACC championship alive. But unfortunately, neither one came to pass for Clemson in this game, again falling 31-24 in overtime. Clemson honestly outplayed Florida State in most of this game. Cade Klubnik by far played his best game this season. I know there were a lot of question marks about him and how he's played through the first couple of games this season. Honestly, it's a bit of a small sample size, and really, he's gotten better every week. The same can be said for the entire team. They've showed signs of improvement and gotten better a little bit each week, and it kind of showed this weekend in a big way as they were able to really outplay Florida State most of the way in this game. Clemson never trailed in this game up until it came to overtime. So they outplayed Florida State most of the way. It just kind of came down to a couple of plays here and there, which Dabo Sweeney has been reiterating nonstop seemingly ever since. The problem is that the plays that Dabo Sweeney are pointing out as being the ones that really flipped the game really weren't what flipped it. Dabo consistently keeps going back to turnovers as being the reason why Clemson is 2-2 this season so far. He's also consistently going back to, in particular with this game, the play where right before Phil Maffa breaks off like a 49-yard run. This is while Clemson's up by a touchdown. Looks like they got a chance to go up 2 scores. Next thing you know, very next play, Cade Klubnik stands in the pocket for too long. Pressure comes. He gets strip sacked, and it goes for a 60-yard scoop and score for Florida State that ended up tying the game. And while that was a significant play because it did flip the game on its head, because Clemson was about to go up 2 scores, that in the end was not the play that really decided the game. And I think most Clemson fans are smart enough to know, and most of them are rightfully angry about it. But it really comes down to what happened there in overtime in this game. And really, you could even pinpoint before they went to overtime. And I know that the big fourth down stop that Clemson came up with there towards the end of regulation when Nate Wiggins laid out and sacrificed his body to go and knock that pass down in order to force a turnover on downs to give Clemson the ball. There was time left on the clock to where Clemson easily could have gone down and taken a couple of shots towards the end zone there to try to win it in regulation. And it seemed like from the get-go their intention was just to kind of play to go to overtime. I mean, Dabo Swinney was asked about this in his post-game press conference, and he basically said, "No, we thought about it. We thought about going up there and spiking the ball and then taking a shot at the end zone since we didn't have any timeouts. But the play before that, I mean, they had a chance for 2 plays. They decided to run the ball, and Will Shipley picks up 9 yards there. But yeah, right after that, they come up to the line of scrimmage. Looked like they were going to try to spike it, and then they just kind of ran out of time. But in that situation, it kind of seems like that maybe they shouldn't have even run the ball the play before. They should have been taking shots at the end zone because they still had a chance to win the game in regulation right then and there, and they decided not to. You also go back to the decision to kick the field goal there to try to win the game in regulation like they did a couple of drives before that when Jonathan Whites, who, by the way, interesting story coming into this game. Jonathan Whites, of course, was BT Potter's backup kicker for 4 years. He's now a graduate student at Clemson, but was not even on Clemson's roster or on Clemson's campus for the weeks leading up to this game. He was, I think, as early as Wednesday, was living down in Charleston, has taken his graduate classes online. And then Dabo Sweeney gave him a phone call. He was like, "Look, our kicker's struggling. We need a veteran kicker to come up here. Would you mind coming back on the roster?" And he agreed to it. And so next thing you know, Jonathan Whites is coming back up to Clemson. And stories like this, as bizarre but also heartwarming as they are, go figure. Jonathan White's got Clemson's first points of the game, put them up 3-0 early when he made a 30-yard field goal there in the first quarter. But he had a chance to win the game for Clemson, and he pushed a sucker wide left from a distance that was basically the equivalent to an extra point. Yeah, that's nothing against him. I know he hadn't attempted any field goals coming in because, again, he was BT Potter's backup for 4 years. There may have been a good reason why he was BT Potter's backup, but at the end of the day, even though he missed that field goal, the question mark with that is whether or not Clemson should have even been playing for that field goal, because in a game like this, you kind of feel like you need a touchdown to win it. A field goal may not have cut it against Florida State, especially with how well they were moving the ball there in the second half, but they decided to kick the field goal. So that was the first questionable decision there. But again, the second questionable decision was after he missed the field goal. Again, when it came down to it, after Florida State turned it over on downs, they decided to run the ball there. And then instead of spiking it and taking another shot at the end zone, they let the clock run out almost like they were playing for overtime. Dabo's reasoning for that again was, hey, we didn't have enough time to get organized. The clock was moving too fast. I'm sorry, that kind of seems like just a bit of a pitiful excuse, to be honest. I mean, Dabo is always known to be a little bit defensive of decisions that have been made that were questionable in games, usually to the point where he goes on these crazy Clemson, crazy little old Clemson rants that he goes on. There's things that produce a great Daboism sound bites that we all come to love and adore, but really, it just seems like playing for a field goal wasn't wise there. And it really wasn't wise just to kind of play for overtime either in a game this big when you're at home and you've been outplaying Florida State. It just kind of seems like he should have tried to win it there in regulation, but he didn't. They ended up playing for overtime, and now, of course, the big time question mark that everybody has here is what happened in overtime. Florida State puts the pressure on you early. They score first. You need a touchdown to at least tie the game and send it into double overtime. Again, here we go. Dabo lets Garrett Riley with the play calling go up there and call a bubble screen there on 3rd and 1 with the game on the line. The play before that, Will Shipley drags like 5 guys with him 9 yards to make it 3rd and 1. You've got Will Shipley in your backfield, and even if you don't use Will Shipley, you've got just as athletic of a running back and Phil Maffa back there. All you got to do is run the ball and just pick up a first down there and see if you can get another set of downs to try to get to the end zone. Because if you pick up the first down there, I think that the very next thing you should do is take a shot at the end zone there. You should be going for the dagger at that point. But instead, they left it up to Cade Klubnik, decided to go play action, and of course Klubnik throws that screen, goes for a loss of a yard, makes it 4th and 2. Then on the 4th down play, there was either a miscommunication on the route or something happened. They were going for Bo Collins over in the far corner. He throws it in his direction, but it's kind of behind him, it's nowhere near him, falls to the turf. Florida State ends up winning because of that. It's that end of the game. But the question mark here is on why you didn't run it on 3rd and 1, and then on 4th and 2. Heck, if you're going to take that shot, it was a good play call. Don't get me wrong, but it seemed like it wasn't going to be enough to get them in the end zone right there, even if you did catch it. So if you're Clemson, you really should have been taking shots at the end zone there, and you didn't. And on 3rd and 1, you ran a bubble screen, and you left it up to Cade Klubnik to even have the option of not handing the ball off there. The post-game press conference, Dabo's defense on that was, well, we expected him to hand the ball off there. He didn't. It was a situational awareness thing. That's where we've got to get better as coaches. Okay, well, it shouldn't have ever been in a situation where he was left to make that decision. There shouldn't have been the option there to just throw the ball. You should have been running from square one. So why didn't you burn a timeout and change the play call there instead of just leaving it up to him? Other than that, I thought Garrett Riley called a very good game for Clemson. It was just this 2 little questionable decisions, and Dabo, of course, will defend Garrett Riley, and Dabo will defend himself on it. But at the end of the day, it wasn't the turnovers that cost to Clemson. Yes, it was significant because it put the momentum back in Florida State's favor when it felt like Clemson was about to pull away. But at the end of the day, it was the play call decisions there down the stretch that ended up coming back to bite Clemson. And that's why they lost this game. That's why they're sitting at 2-2. So the takeaways here is that Clemson, though, if you're a Clemson fan, you have to be encouraged because you did outplay Florida State. And on top of that, you continue to show signs of improvement every week. Cade Klubnik did finally play up to the potential, played like the Cade Klubnik he's been advertised to be. We'll see if that continues as they go up to Syracuse this weekend, a place that Clemson has historically not played very well, especially when they're a favorite coming in. But I kind of feel like this weekend, with the way Clemson played, I don't feel like this is a trap game per se, because there shouldn't be any trap games from here on out. The pressure is completely off of Clemson because at this point, you're 0-2 in conference play. You're not going to end up playing for the ACC championship this year. You're not going to win the ACC championship, and you sure as heck with 2 losses aren't going to be in the playoffs at this point. At this point, what you're trying to salvage is just trying to win 9 games, make a decent bowl, maybe 10 games. But